TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, IDF Chief of General Staff Lieutenant General Aviv Kochavi stresses that the Israeli military is working unceasingly on 6 separate areas of responsibility in order to guarantee the eternal security of the Jewish state. The U.S. administration has granted Moscow assurances that it will not sanction Russia's participation in nuclear projects that are part of reviving the 2015 nuclear agreement. The Islamic Republic of Iran remains unyielding on its demand that the United States remove the IRGC from its designated list of foreign terrorist organizations. Israel is working unceasingly on 6 separate areas of responsibility in order to guarantee the eternal security of the Jewish state. During a special ceremony honoring multiple municipalities that have successfully advanced educational programs to stimulate high numbers of recruitment to the Israel Defense Forces, Chief of General Staff Lieutenant General Aviv Kochavi highlighted the extensive complexities with which the military has to contend with.
צה"ל מתמודד עם 6 זירות, לבנון, סוריה, איו"ש, עזה, סיני, וכמובן איראן, שזה בכל המקומות, מסכין ועד גרעין. אין צבא כזה בעולם. באמת, אין צבא בעולם שמתמודד עם 6 זירות, כולם פעילות, וכולם אנחנו עושים פעילות, אני לא מדבר על פעילות של איסוף מודיעין. אני מדבר על פעילות מבצעית, על פעילות הגנתית, על פעילות התקפית.
2 such offensive operations took place in the West Bank refugee camps of Balata and Kalandia north of Jerusalem. Special Operations servicemen of the Undercover Border Police Yamas unit entered the densely populated Palestinian camps for the purpose of arresting 2 suspects at the behest of the Israeli security agency Shin Bet. During the arrest, which included active operational participation by a K-9 Shepherd from the ranks of the IDF's Oketz unit, the suspected terrorist was seized before troops entered the room, and following a short search of the premise, an M4 assault rifle was located. In tandem, during the course of the operation, 2 armed Palestinian assailants arrived at the scene by means of a scooter and opened fire toward the Israeli troops that were securing the surrounding alleyways. Consequently, following a brief exchange of fire, one of the Palestinian gunmen was neutralized while the second was arrested and taken in for further questioning. Meanwhile, hundreds of Palestinians, including dozens of armed militants, held a funeral procession for the terrorist, reportedly a member of the Iranian proxy Palestinian Islamic Jihad. A local resident subsequently provided a recount of the Palestinian perspective to the developments which took place during the Israeli military's raid.
طبعا اثناء تواجدنا اليوم على مدخل المخيم في تمام الساعه 7 صباحا اقتحمت قوه كبيره من القوات الخاصه الاسرائيليه منطقه مخيم كولنديا ومخيم كولنديا تحديدا بذريعه طبعا اعتقال بعض الشبان المطلوبين لديها. طبعا حصلت مواجهه كالمعتاد. طبعا شبان مخيم كولنديا صناديد هذا المخيم يرفضون تماما استباحه هذا المخيم من قبل هذا المحتل. كانت هناك مواجهه عنيفه من قبل قوى الشباب شباب المخيم لهذه القوه التي طبعا امطرت منطقه كولنديا بوابل من الرصاص الحي وقنابل الغاز المسيل للدموع. كان هنالك طبعا عده اصابات بالاقدام، قرابه 6 اصابات بالرصاص الحي. طبعا ارتقى الشهيد علاء محمد شحام.
Well, these kinds of operations by Israel's security establishment are conducted daily with the key objective to prevent aspirations by terror organizations and malign state actors from executing acts of terror against Israeli civilians. The greatest threat to the security of the Jewish state remains the Islamic Republic of Iran. Among others, Tehran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards has ratcheted up investments in developing advanced unmanned aerial vehicles as part of an effort to challenge Israel's qualitative military edge, among others. In parallel, Israel is heavily engaged in force buildup to contend with the growing Iranian threat, which Defense Minister Benny Gantz asserted during a tour of Israel's aerospace industries is a vital component necessary to keep Israel both peaceful and secure.
התעשייה האווירית היא מפגן של עוצמה טכנולוגית ויצירתיות ישראלית. האמצעים שמיוצרים פה מאפשרים לנו לשמור על העליונות הביטחונית שלנו באזור. אנחנו נכנסים לעידן של צרכים חדשים עם שווקים חדשים ונוספים שנפתחים.
Meanwhile, the U.S. administration has granted Moscow assurances that it will not sanction Russia's participation in nuclear projects that are part of reviving the 2015 nuclear agreement. Western diplomats who spoke with TV7 on condition of anonymity explained that one of the most stringent sanctions enacted against Russia over its offensive in Ukraine was imposed on its foreign nuclear development projects. These include 24 separate, multi-billion development projects of nuclear reactors, the majority of which are being constructed for China and India respectively. Therefore, when the Ukraine-related sanctions brought into question Russian contracts for the development of Iran's nuclear program, once a nuclear deal is potentially revived, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov demanded written guarantees from the Biden administration to ensure Moscow's interests are preserved. Asked whether the United States changed its vocally stressed position regarding sanctions on Russia, State Department spokesman Ned Price stressed unequivocally that the United States would not sanction Russian participation in nuclear projects that are part of resuming full implementation of the JCPOA.
We have made significant progress over recent days when it comes to the possibility of mutual return to compliance with the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. We continue to engage with Russia on a return to full implementation of the JCPOA. I think what you heard from Foreign Minister Lavrov, I will let him speak for himself, I will let the Russians speak for themselves, but it may well be a reflection of the fact that we, of course, would not sanction Russian participation in nuclear projects that are part of resuming full implementation of the JCPOA. We can't, and we won't, and we have not provided assurances beyond that to Russia.
Price went on to emphasize, however, that any new sanctions imposed on Russia will remain intact, since these are unrelated to a potential return to full compliance with the JCPOA, the acronym for the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which is the technical term for the so-called 2015 nuclear agreement.
The new Russia-related sanctions are unrelated to a potential return to full compliance with the JCPOA, and they shouldn't have any impact on its implementation. And it may well be a reflection of what we've said all along, that an Iran that is unconstrained in its nuclear program, and that has no permanent, verifiable limits attached to that nuclear program. That is not in our interests. It is not in the interests of our European allies. It is not in the interests of the PRC, and it's certainly not in the interests of the Russian Federation.
The State Department spokesman continued by stressing, specifically regarding the current state of the nuclear negotiations, which have been suspended since last week, emphasizing that a number of outstanding issues remain, and it is up to the leadership in Tehran to take the necessary political decisions that would materialize the JCPOA's revival.
There were and are a small number of outstanding issues. Now that we are this close to the finish line, those outstanding issues tend to be the hardest issues. So we're not there yet. Nothing is agreed until everything is agreed, but we continue to assess that a mutual return to compliance would be the most effective, the best way to verifiably and permanently once again have those limits on Iran's nuclear program.
In contrast to Washington's repeated assertion that the so-called ball is in Tehran's court on reviving the 2015 nuclear deal, earlier this week, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Saeed Khatibzadeh reiterated Tehran's unwavering position that it would not forgo on its red lines including regarding its non-nuclear demand that the Biden administration removes the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps from its designated list of foreign terrorist organizations. Until the moment the Biden administration succumbs to the Ayatollah regime's demand, the latter does not intend to return to Vienna.
ما الان در نقطه اعلام توافق قرار نداریم. اون هم به دلیل این هستش که برخی مباحث بسیار کلیدی البته محدود باقی مونده که اینها باید در واشنگتن تصمیماتش اتخاذ بشه. به محض اینکه این تصمیمات در واشنگتن اتخاذ بشه ما در نقطه قرار خواهیم داشتش که برگردیم به وین و دور نهایی و برای رسیدن به یک توافق خوب و پایدار رو انشاءالله برگزار کنیم. متاسفانه دولت آقای بایدن در مذاکرات وین هر روز یک کنشی از خودش نشون داد.
Thank you for watching us. As part of TV7 Israel's daily prayer initiative, I would like to encourage you today to once again pray for Australia, including all those who are affected by a flood crisis in the continent, alongside unceasing prayer for the situation revolving Russia and Ukraine, prayers for our persecuted brothers and sisters worldwide, in addition to our ongoing prayers for the peace of Jerusalem and the salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Hassan, wishing you an Erev Mevorach, and we will see you again tomorrow at the same time.